Alright, hand starts off with a limp from the low jack. Hijack raises to 25. I'm on the button with ace-4 of diamonds and make the call. Small blind and low jack call as well. We go multi-way to a flop of 7-6-3 with 2 hearts and a diamond. So I flop a gutter ball to the bad end along with backdoor nut diamonds. Low jack bets a quarter pot, 25. Hijack calls, getting a good price, so I call, and small blind calls as well. We go to a turn of a 7 of clubs. Action checks through. River comes a 5 of diamonds. Small blind checks, and low jack bets 120. Hijack folds, and although I make a straight, his bet sizing does feel quite value-y, so I decide to make a tight fold. Small blind tank calls. Low jack shows jack 10 of hearts for the missed heart draw, and small blind tables ace 4 offsuit for the straight. So I would have chopped this hand, and I play a bit nitty to start the session off. Next hand, there's a limp from the cutoff. I raise it to 25 from the button with pocket aces, and I get calls from the small blind and cutoff. 3 ways to a flop of Jack Jack 7 rainbow. Checks to me. I fire 45, and both players call. Turn comes a deuce of diamonds, putting up a backdoor flush draw. With both players calling the flop and checking to me on this turn, it feels like I could very well be up against trips, so I exercise pot control and check back. River comes, a 3 of spades. Small blind checks, and cutoff bets 120, and although it looks like value, it's hard for me to fold for that price, so I call. Small blind folds, and cutoff tables Jack 8 of hearts to take it down. An incorrect fold in the first hand, and now an incorrect call to start off the session, getting the aces cracked. In this next one, Under the Gun, who is one of the tightest players at Lucky Chances, raises to 20. Cutoff calls, I just flat from the button with pocket 10s, the blinds call as well. 5 ways to a flop of Jack 4 deuce rainbow. Decent flat with just 1 over, and when he checks to me, I bet 50 for protection, and that's good enough as everyone folds. Next hand, it folds to me in the hijack with 6-7 of clubs, and I open it up to 20. Only the button calls. We go to a flop of ace-9 deuce with 2 diamonds and a club, so I flop some hopeful backdoors. Action checks through. Turn comes a 9 of clubs, pairing the board and giving me a flush draw. I check, and he bets pot, $40 with around 300 back. Kind of tough to just call with a small flush draw. If I hit the river, it can be difficult to go for value. If I miss, a bluff might look fishy, so I decide to put in the check raise to 160, and he's in the tank for a little while before he shows the ace of spades and folds his hand, so good result here. Next hand, I raise it to 20 from middle position with 8-9 of hearts, and I get 3 callers, the hijack, cutoff, and small blind. Multi-way to a flop of queen 10-6 with 2 spades and a heart. So I flop a double gutter with backdoor hearts. Can mix between checking or betting. I choose the former, and the other 2 players check as well. So get a free look at the turn, which comes a king of spades. So board gets worse, and just gonna give up on this hand. Action checks through. River comes though, a 7 of diamonds. So I hit a mini miracle, making the straight. Checks to me. I go for value, $50. I get a couple folds, and ultimately a reluctant call from the small blind. I table, and it's good. Next hand, there's a limp from Under the Gun. I raise it to 25 from the button with pocket jacks. Big blind calls, and Under the Gun does the limp re-raise to 165. Most of the time, this is going to be ace-king plus. We are playing another 700 back if I call, and that's what I do is I'm going to play this hand pretty straight up, hoping to spike a jack. Big blind folds. We go heads up to a flop of king 8-3 with 2 hearts and a diamond. Under the Gun announces 400, and that makes my decision easy. I fold, and he does show his hand, which is pocket aces. Next hand, I raise it to 20 from Under the Gun with the pseudo ace king, since I can make the same, but we're straight with this hand. Get calls from the button and big blind. 3 ways to a flop of queen 6 deuce rainbow. Action checks through. Turn comes a deuce of clubs, giving me backdoor clubs. Big blind bets 35. I call, and button folds. River comes, the jack of clubs. So I get there, he checks, I bet 110, and get a call. So I take this one down via the back door. Next hand, I raise it to 20 from the hijack with ace 10 of spades, and I get 2 callers, the button and big blind. We go to a flop of king 10-7 with 2 clubs and a spade. Big blind checks, and I have to check this one. Button checks as well. Turn comes a deuce of diamonds. Checks to the button who bets 25. Big blind folds, and I just call. River comes a 4 of diamonds, so a good brick. I check. He bets 50, and I've got a good hand to bluff catch, so I call. But unfortunately, he tables 4 deuce of hearts to take it down. My fault for letting him get there. There's a cutoff raise to 20 in this next one. I'm on the button with king queen offsuit and 3-bet it to 65. Big blind cold calls and cutoff calls as well. We go to a flop of ace king jack with 2 diamonds and a heart. When it checks to me, this board smashes me, but with my exact hand, I'm not sure what betting will accomplish. If I check back, I think I can still remain uncapped, meaning that I can still have all the top end value hands, so I just check. Turn comes a 6 of spades. Big blind checks, and cutoff puts out a bet of 150. I don't think he's ever bluffing here. The ace not being a diamond is somewhat important, as he can be betting ace x of diamonds, and in that case I would be mostly dead, so I decided to just let this one go. Next hand, there's a limp from under the gun. Middle position raises to 20. Small blind calls. I'm in the big blind with 8-9 offsuit and make the loose call as well. Under the gun comes along. We go to a flop of 10-7-6, so I flop the joint. Checks to the initial raiser who bets 60, and only I make the call. Turn comes a 7 of spades, so not the best card. I check it over to him, and he fires 145. Typically, raising in this spot is probably an overplay, but against this particular opponent, he's been pretty light throughout the session, so I feel like I can raise here and get called by worse. That's what I do, and he ultimately goes all in for a little bit more. So, unfortunately, I run into it here, as he's got 6-7 of clubs. River is inconsequential, and I double him up for his 570. And immediately after, there's a low jack raise to 20, and there are a string of calls from the hijack, cutoff, and button. And that's when it gets to me in the small blind with pocket kings. Gonna be a 3-bet, of course, and I go for a slightly larger sizing of 175 to make it look like I'm steaming from the previous hand. Folds over to the hijack who jams for around $600. Cutoff also jams for 200. I, of course, make the call. And I get some promising news from the low jack player who folded. He mentioned that he folded an ace, so should just be dodging 2 outs. And unfortunately, the board does not cooperate. It comes ace high, hijack tables, ace queen of hearts to scoop this one. Last notable hand, I raise it to 20 from under the gun with pocket 4s, and I get calls from the cutoff and big blind. 3 ways to a flop of 9-6-6 rainbow. Action checks through. Turn comes a 3 of hearts, putting up backdoor hearts. Big blind checks. I bet 40 for protection and value, and I get called by both players, so it doesn't feel like I've got the best hand. River comes a king of diamonds. Big blind checks, and I'm going to have more kings in this spot than the other 2 players, so I turn my hand into a bluff and bet 160, and both players let it go. So nice to actually scoop a hand. All right, that's going to do it for this one. Got in the game for a large amount, $2,800, out for much less, $1,227, over 5.5 hours of play. So book a pretty big loss of almost $1,600. And the 8-9 and the pocket kings hand were the ones that really did me in today and just couldn't bounce back from there. And yeah, just going to try to do better on future sessions. So I'll see you guys then.